Time now to get you up to date on all the day's top stories. Political reporter Cam Redden, he joins me now. And Cam, I think you're on annual leave, so I'm very grateful you came in especially for us. Thank you so very much. Now, big news from Penny Wong today, and fair to say it hasn't gone down well with the Jewish community.
No days off in this job, of course, Erin, as we know, by the way. But no, this is quite a significant decision, and we kind of knew it was coming too. The government deciding to unfreeze the funding to UNRWA, which is the United Nations arm for aid in the occupied Palestinian territories. $6 million was promised in January. That was frozen following the claims of UNRWA staff being involved in the October 7 attacks. But Penny Wong has, for those 2 months, said that the government wants that funding to resume because, in her view, it's the only feasible way to get aid into those territories. So today, the decision was made to unfreeze it. Her justification, Erin, being that it's now her view, she's satisfied that UNRWA has taken sufficient action and that funding will go to the appropriate sources, that UNRWA has fired staff and that the investigations, in her view, are sufficient. Here's some of the argument that Penny Wong mounted today.
Australia is unpausing our contribution to UNRWA. The best available current advice from agencies and the Australian government lawyers is that UNRWA is not a terrorist organisation.
Yeah, I've got more to say on this a little bit later. My issue with this is there was evidence way prior that has been ignored in this space, and I've got absolutely zero confidence in that organisation, nor the bigger one that umbrellas it. Cam, let's move on though. A war of words. It's getting a bit nasty, isn't it? The annual GST wars.
Yeah, it's the annual chest-beating contest, I think, between the various states in this case, Erin. They all kind of put on the best show that they can to try and get the biggest slice of the pie. There's always a gripe when it comes to carving up the GST. The latest one in the most simple terms, because this thing is always a bit of a word salad. But basically, Queensland and New South Wales get a bit less, and Victoria gets substantially more in the latest carve-up, for various reasons, ranging from changes in population, changes in mining royalties and other things. But this has sparked a bit of a war of words, if you like, particularly between the New South Wales Premier and the Victorian Treasurer, between Chris Minns and Tim Pallas. Here's a little bit of the sparring that's taken place over the last day or so.
The only thing worse than Victoria taking our money is them crying about it afterwards.
A mathematically challenged New South Wales Premier, might I say. He might not be the sharpest tool in the shed, but he is a tool.
I mean, as a renowned investigative journalist, Cam, I have gone to Chris Minns for reaction to the tool comment, and his text back to me was, "I'll survive." Clearly not deeply hurt. Okay.
No, it's all water off a duck's back, surely.
You'd think so. You'd think so. You've got to have thicker skin than that, don't you? Let's move on. The latest on the Palestinians who have had their Australian visas cancelled.
Yeah, a couple of families, around a dozen or just under people, some of them on their way to Australia, finding out that their visas had been cancelled in the process. The finer details are a little more complicated than they might seem. But in basic terms, Erin, the argument here from Home Affairs is that there was a belief, and in their view, a reasonable belief, that some of these people who'd been granted visas had genuine views that they would just stay in Australia beyond those humanitarian visas being granted. So as a result, they've been cancelled, including for some of those who were in the air. The Home Affairs Minister, Claire O'Neill, and her office today underlining the point that the government has the ability to change its mind or change its position on the granting of visas when circumstances change. Exactly what those changing circumstances might have been hasn't yet made clear. Of course, as we know, the opposition has been quite precise in its criticism of this, critical broadly of the way the government has handled it, and reiterating its demand for the highest level of scrutiny on those who do make it to Australia from the war zones in the Middle East, particularly considering that some of them don't have the documentation that might normally be expected.
It's their number one job, Cam, to keep us safe. What about the Fair Work Commission? They've handed down their decision to approve the 28% pay increase aged care workers put to the board back in 2020.
Yeah, this is a massive one, 28%, as you mentioned, Erin, and keeping in mind too, this is a 28% increase essentially on what many workers were earning less than 18 months ago, because there was a decision, an interim decision in 2022 to boost the pay of aged care workers by 15%. That's now been updated for some workers up to 28%, so nearly a third on what they were earning less than 18 months ago, affecting around 200,000 workers. You don't have to live or work in Canberra to predict what the Dixes are going to be for the government in question time on Monday afternoon. They've been talking for years about getting wages moving. We've now seen real wages pick up, wages overtake inflation, and now a 28% pay rise for many aged care workers. No surprise the Prime Minister will be crying about that on Monday afternoon.
No, absolutely. Look, they are a workforce that thoroughly deserves it. They do a job most of us couldn't do. Cam Redden, thank you again, and thank you for coming in on your day off. Very grateful.